the days following the pacification of 6319, the Warmaster's fleet moved on, proud and seemingly invincible. Horus, chosen son of the Emperor, bearer of the Great Crusade's will, had never faltered, but the seeds of doubt and betrayal had already been planted in soil more fertile than anyone had suspected. The darkness that awaited him would not come in the form of Xenos or rebellion, but from within the very foundations of his own purpose. The call came from Davin, a moon long thought secured. Word had arrived that Eugen Temba, once a trusted officer under Horus's command, had turned traitor and claimed dominion over the surface. The report was unexpected. Davin had been pacified years ago, its military resistance crushed and its culture deemed compliant. Temba's rebellion was a violation, but more than that, it was personal. Horus had given Temba his commission. The betrayal struck deeper than mere insubordination. Determined to confront the problem directly, Horus ordered the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet to Davin. The Mournival, Garviel Loken, Torgadon, Little Horus Aximand, and Abaddon stood by him as he planned the descent. The Warmaster's intention to go in person was unconventional, and many questioned the wisdom of exposing himself to danger. But Horus insisted. It was his failure to recognize Temba's disloyalty, and he would be the one to correct it. When the Lunar Wolves deployed, Davin's decay was immediately evident. The air was thick with rot, the land sunken and slick with diseased mire. The ruins of civilization stood twisted by unseen corruption. The stench was omnipresent, and even the Astartes, bred for endurance, found the atmosphere oppressive. Advancing on the Temple Mound, a central structure that radiated malign power, Horus led the charge. The warriors approached through swamp and ruined stone, encountering resistance in the form of bloated, corrupted creatures and the stifling presence of the warp itself. Nothing natural lived here anymore. In the heart of the temple, they found what had once been Temba. The man had become a husk, his body animated by unnatural energies. His words were wrong, twisted and broken, and the weapon he carried was no mere blade. It was the Anathame, a relic imbued with powers drawn from the warp. In a swift and terrible moment, Temba struck. Horus took the wound. Though his blade shattered Temba's cursed form in retaliation, the damage was already done. The Warmaster fell. There was no bleeding, no normal response. The wound resisted even the enhanced healing of his transhuman body. The fleet's medici, the apothecaries, and even the finest gene therapies could not stop the decline. Horus's body failed, and worse, his spirit seemed unreachable, drifting as though caught between worlds. The Mournival stood in silent horror. It was then that Erebus, the chaplain of the Word-Bearers, an outsider who had earned Horus's trust, offered another way. On Davin, there was a lodge, ancient, hidden, and spiritual. There, healing might be possible, not through technology, but through ritual. It was heresy in all but name. Loken objected, sensing rot behind Erebus's composure, but the rest of the Mournival, driven by loyalty and desperation, accepted the offer. Horus was taken back to the surface. In the Serpent Lodge, beneath twisted icons and the starlight of a dead moon, the Warmaster was laid upon the stone. Priests performed the ritual, with Erebus ever close, watching. The air shimmered with energy, not born of science, and no one present could deny the power that stirred. What they had once called superstition now stared back at them, unblinking. Horus drifted in a world that was not real, but not false either. As Horus lay wounded by the Anathame, his body unresponsive and beyond the reach of any apothecary or genecraft, his consciousness was pulled into a space unlike any battlefield he had ever known. In the lodge beneath the stars of Davin, his body remained still, guarded and watched by brothers desperate for his return. But within the void of his mind, he crossed into something far deeper than a dream. A realm where the laws of the physical no longer applied, and time unfolded in strange loops and symbols. At first, he wandered in uncertainty, alone. The sensation was not fear, but weightlessness. He drifted through darkened visions, and soon the images came, not of memory, but prophecy. He saw a golden future where the Emperor ascended, not as a father to his sons, but as a god to humanity. Upon the golden throne, the Emperor sat enthroned, silent, revered, unreachable. Around him, billions of humans bowed in worship. The stars echoed with litanies and praise, not for mankind, not for unity, but for a single, deified being. The Emperor had told them there were no gods. The betrayal ran deeper than words. Horus saw the contradiction laid bare. The Imperium that had been promised, an empire of rational truth, free from superstition and ignorance, was false. The Council of Terror, already formed, had begun pushing the Astartes aside. Warriors like Horus, like all the legions, were no longer part of the Emperor's future. They were tools, weapons for conquest, never meant to share in the final vision. And there, in the shadows of that vision, stood Erebus, cloaked, patient, and guiding. He was not always visible, not always near, but his hand shaped the vision. He guided Horus toward clarity. It was Erebus who revealed to him the alternate histories, the paths abandoned. Horus saw himself return to Terra, no longer the Warmaster, but a relic, his praises forgotten, his deeds unmentioned. The Emperor no longer looked at him as a son, only as a servant whose usefulness had ended. More visions came, layered one upon the next. He saw Lorgar, bowed and broken for the sin of belief. He saw the Emperor striking down gods of old, powers that Horus now knew were real. Not falsehoods, but beings exiled by the Emperor to keep mankind ignorant. The psychic powers the Emperor wielded were born of the same energy he forbade his sons from understanding. It was hypocrisy made manifest. The vision widened. Horus saw other sons, brothers he had fought beside. Some smiling, others grim. He saw divisions forming, not yet physical, but inevitable. He saw the legions splinter. He saw fire across the stars, cities burning, worlds lost, armies shattered. And at the center of the storm stood the Emperor, cold and unmoved. In this place, time no longer obeyed causality. The future and past coiled like serpents. Horus relived his birth upon Chthoniya, the rise through the ranks, the moment the Emperor named him Warmaster. He felt again the pride, the sense of purpose, and then the slow twist of that pride into doubt. How long had the deception been in place? Had the Emperor ever intended to share power with his sons? Or had they always been pawns, strong, loyal, and disposable? And then came Magnus, Primarch of the Thousand Suns. For a moment, the storm stilled. Magnus the Red, crimson-robed and burning with psychic brilliance, appeared before Horus within the vision. He was not like the others, not an echo or shade, but truly present. He spoke directly. Magnus warned Horus that what he was seeing was not truth, but manipulation. He told him not to trust what the vision was showing, and especially not to trust Erebus, who lingered at the edge of Horus's awareness, even now. Magnus pleaded with Horus to reject the illusion, to see that it was a trap designed to turn him against the Emperor. The message was clear. This was not prophecy, but deception, carefully constructed to corrupt. But Horus, wounded in body and pride, questioned. Why should Magnus defend the Emperor? Why was this warning so convenient? Why had the Emperor abandoned him to this fate in the first place? Erebus's influence surged again. The vision twisted, and Magnus's voice faltered, buried beneath a tide of affirmations. Horus was chosen. The gods had seen his strength, His doubts were the gateway to truth. He did not need to serve. He could lead. The golden path unfurled once more. Horus saw himself not only freed from the Emperor's command, but elevated beyond him. The legions would follow. The galaxy would kneel. He would remake the Imperium in fire and faith. A new truth written in the warp's language. Magnus's warning faded like dust in a storm. In the final moments of the vision, Horus saw the future if he refused. He saw the end of the legions, scattered and dismantled. He saw his own death, meaningless, forgotten. He saw the Emperor praised as a god in spite of his will, humanity chained by worship and bureaucracy. The future would come, whether Horus willed it or not. But with his hand, it could be reshaped. He awoke. And when he did, his body no longer ached. His wound closed, the power of the ritual restored his flesh. But more than that, his purpose had solidified. To those who saw him rise, there was triumph. To those who knew what had passed inside the vision, there was no celebration. Horus had crossed a threshold. He had seen a lie so vast it encompassed the Imperium itself. He had seen a path where brotherhood was no longer servitude, and he had seen that the price of remaining loyal was annihilation. He would not pay it. When he awoke, his body healed faster than even the medici could understand. He returned to the vengeful spirit, and the Mournival greeted him with awe. But the man who stood before them was not the same. His words were smoother, more careful. His smiles returned, but they did not reach his eyes. The changes were subtle at first. Horus began speaking in terms of legacy and destiny. He questioned the Emperor's decisions more openly. He encouraged the warrior lodges to flourish, not only as fraternities, but as places where real power could shift. The idea that warriors might have their own voice, distinct from the Emperor's edicts, became acceptable. Erebus remained close. Though he returned to his own fleet intermittently, his influence lingered. Malaghurst, long the Warmaster's equerry, grew in power as well, acting more like a vizier than a servant. He encouraged Horus to take greater autonomy. The Council of Terra, Horus claimed, had already turned against him. The Mournival began to drift. Torgadon joked less. Aximand watched Loken with new caution, and Loken himself stood increasingly alone. His doubts festered. He watched Erebus move among the captains and saw the change in his brother's language, in their priorities. A campaign on Aureus confirmed it. Horus treated diplomacy as a means to gather allegiance, not to enforce imperial truth. The lodge meetings became more than social gatherings. They were where strategy and loyalty were tested. Loken attended reluctantly and saw firsthand how dissent was managed. Belief in the Emperor waned, replaced by belief in Horus himself. The change in the Legion's culture was now unmistakable. Then came the Quiet Council, an inner meeting, more exclusive than any before. Here, Horus laid his mind bare. The Emperor, he said, had failed them. The future of the Imperium was no longer safe in his hands. The legions must seize control. The gods of the warp, once denied, were real and powerful. They offered guidance, strength, and had chosen Horus to lead humanity into a new age. Some voices questioned, hesitated, but many more accepted. Their loyalty to Horus was deeper than their loyalty to the Emperor. And Horus, with his charisma, his history, and his quiet certainty, gathered them under his cause. Loken confronted his brothers. He challenged the spread of the lodge, the direction of their conversations, the way the Emperor was now treated as a rival rather than a father. But his words held no sway. Torgadon turned away. Aximand listened, but offered no support. The Mournival had fractured. Outside the Legion, Erebus continued his work. He traveled in secret to Lorgar's fleet, whispering the same truths. The word-bearers had already walked the path of rejection and belief. Now others would follow. The rebellion was no longer potential. It was a network. Horus's campaign continued, but the nature of his war had changed. Worlds were judged not just on their resistance, but on their willingness to swear allegiance to his cause. Imperial truth faded. In its place grew a darker vision, an Imperium ruled by strength, purpose, and divine guidance. The Lodge grew into a new order. The Lunar Wolves had not yet been renamed, but they no longer marched beneath the same ideals. Loken watched his legion shift beneath his feet. Where once he had felt unity, he now saw divergence. His trust in Horus faltered, but he could not let go of it completely. His Primarch had been more than a commander. He had been hope, leadership, the embodiment of the Crusade's ideals. To see him turn was like watching the sun dim. The final chapters of the change did not come with thunder or declaration. They came in quiet oaths, in choices made behind closed doors. Horus gathered his strength not with weapons, but with belief. The heresy had not yet erupted, but its shape was formed. The Warmaster, once the Emperor's mightiest son, no longer marched for unity. He marched to reshape the galaxy in his own image.